Welcome back to the YouTube home for BamaOnLine.com. Travis Reier, senior analyst for BOL, alongside site publisher Tim Watts right there next to me. And then gets the special square status on this Monday morning. Andrew Bone down there, our senior recruiting editor. I guess, guys, we could call this the Caleb Cunningham, Ty Haywood after party after this weekend. What a weekend for the Alabama Crimson Tide. And Tim Watts, it feels like weekends in general have been good to this coaching staff. And now to a recruiting class for the 2025 cycle. As of today, guys, sits right there in the top spot.
It's weird to adjust to because it was always kids trying to commit on Monday and Tuesday and at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night, literally going off the Twitter, get the most views segment back then. But to see everything happening on the weekend is weird to some degree. A lot of Saturday commitments, as we've noted, there was two literally while they were on their official visit, just said, heck, I'm ready. I'm going, even before they talked to Kalen on Sunday. So just a crazy ride. You spend some time absorbing it. I hope that's what the Bama fans are doing because a lot of them instantly go from who's next, who's next, who's next. We're at that stage. You need to look back and reflect on the class you've got because it's deep and it's really, really good. And it's going to slow down. You can't take 25 guys in June and July and 25 more in December. So
And
brace yourself.
and Tim, I guess you speak of brace ourselves. I guess we got to brace ourselves for the Andrew Bone. I told you so. The man who told us 20 plus commitments by mid August. You know what, Bone? If you really wanted to impress me, you should have said 20 plus by SEC Media Days because that's where it sits right now for this Alabama class. That's even with a couple of decommits a few weeks
Two
ago. So
decommitments.
you really could say it's 25-ish before the decommit. So take your victory lap one more time, Andrew. It's right there. We'll let you carry the Olympic torch and everything else. Go ahead.
Well, we're not to mid August yet, so we got to make sure that everybody sticks
Yeah.
in this class because we know how that goes. But I mean, yeah, I mean, this is obviously a roller coaster ride throughout the entire year, and it is every year. I mean, it's not just with Kalen DeBoer; it was with Nick Saban. Back when Coach Saban was here, we used to talk about in the spring, is Alabama ever going to get anybody? Are they going to have a top 10 class? Are they going to be able to sign a number one class again? No, Saban's fallen off, but he kept reeling in these top two recruiting classes year after year. And yeah, I think that this staff has certainly done a tremendous job, from the moment they arrived until this moment. I mean, this is a job well done by this coaching staff. I think nobody really expected it, but there weren't really any expectations. Nobody knew what to expect with this staff. Everybody just said, "Oh, Coach DeBoer's not from the Southeast. He's not going to have success." Well, there's a lot of people on the staff who are from the Southeast and who do put in a lot of work and who have been around the Alabama program for a long time. And it looks like he's hired a lot of great people he's surrounded himself with. But he's also a great person based on all the different conversations that we've had with parents, other coaches, players, and they've done a tremendous job to this point.
Yeah, it seems to be just the perfect mix, as you kind of outlined there, Andrew, of new folks that came in with Kalen and then some key retentions from the previous staff. And Tim, it was a 5-star weekend. I don't know any other way to put it, with Caleb Cunningham, the 5-star wide receiver, committing to Alabama, and then Ty Haywood, the 5-star offensive tackle. And as we talked about earlier, here's Alabama now with the number one class in the country. Let's talk about how it got here in some ways. And we'll talk about Caleb Cunningham specifically and Ty Haywood because they are the most recent hits for this Alabama staff. Give us a little bit of a path for both those guys to Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, with Caleb, I mean, happy July 4th, social media, since everyone was predicting he'd commit on the 4th. We knew it was going to be more towards the middle of the month. Sometimes these dates are fluid. That's the thing with some of these kids. Ty Haywood has been off and on, back and forth, could be tomorrow for a while, basically since he's left his official visit. I think he just ready to drop and pop yesterday. But I mean, Alabama to get involved there, 5-star offensive lineman. We've been making jokes, but it's true. Andrew posted a picture of the mom hugging Ty, and I was like, she's just glad to have him on the team. She's been committed since May. Miss Haywood has been committed for a while. She's like, Todd, thanks for joining me. I'm glad we don't have to play against each other. So obviously a good moment. He's been leaning that way for a while. And again, tremendous job by Coach Cap, tremendous job by Courtney Morgan, Kaylin DeBoer, everybody that built that staff, because that happened fast. That's along the lines of Chuck McDonald, where boom, boom, we're home. So that happened really fast. Andrew can talk about Caleb a little bit.
Yeah, you go back to Caleb Cunningham, really all the way back into January when Coach Shep first visited him, and he came out and said, I was about to announce the top. He had a top 10 or top 12 at the time. He said I wasn't going to include Alabama in my top 10, and then I met Coach Shep, and his energy, his development at the wide receiver position really spoke out to me. I want to take a visit to Alabama this spring. They're in my top 12. Went to Alabama during the spring, came out and said after that visit, I think it was sometime in March, I didn't want to leave. This is where I wanted to be. Of course, then more visits happen, official visits take place. You go on that first official visit, you've never been on an official visit before. You are treated like absolute royalty throughout the entire 2 or 3 days. So he goes to Auburn. Auburn's at the top of the list after that weekend. Then he goes to Tennessee, then he goes to Florida. Still feels the love from those programs, but then gets back to Alabama after that spring visit, comes back, falls in love all over again. Felt like this was the place he needed to be. And it wasn't just they're my leader for a week. They were his leader for a long time. He committed. I think he actually committed during that weekend when he was on campus, but just kept it quiet and has been a huge addition to the Alabama class.
No doubt about it. And of course, right there, as we show you on the screen, there is the homepage for BamaOnLine.com. You need to jump on board with us right now if you haven't already. $1 for your first month. That's going to get you connected with these guys, with the rest of our great staff right there at BOL. And also the roundtable, our premium message board. That's absolutely where you want to post up for everything as it happens first, right there on our premium message board, the roundtable at BamaOnline.com. You can see right there in the center of our homepage this morning, Andrew Bone with a column, 5 thoughts after Alabama moves to the top spot of the On3 team rankings. So a lot of great stuff right now at BamaOnline.com.
Charlie Potter with the martial arts offensive line story. Krav Maga worked in there.
Very, very good.
It reminds me, what's that movie where the guy was doing the gung su thrust? Remember the referee?
You're the movie guy here, Tim.
Kathy Ireland was the kicker. Scott Bakula was
the necessary roughness.
Yes, remember they had that martial arts linebacker, and the referee is like, gung su thrust to the throat. Charlie, we might get some penalties this year. Travis, I want to point out one thing before it slips my mind as I get older while we do the show. But everybody's wondering when you get 5 stars. Well, the first one they got was on 6/4, June 4th. Keelan Russell. You didn't know he was a 5-star. We talk about this all the time, right? All the time. You don't know how many 5 stars you're going to get because they change between. I mean, at that point, it was just basically his junior stuff. There was no 7-on-7. There wasn't the Elite 11. There wasn't a lot of that. There's still a whole senior thing. Alabama has 5 stars committed, which is absolutely amazing. And if you watch these guys, you're blown away with their film. There's no question. Caleb Cunningham it's the comparisons for him are just going to go on and on. You could link 15 guys to him. We're a big fan of the Carroll kid. He's a great offensive lineman. Ty Haywood speaks for himself, but you never really know. There's a lot of guys Alabama's recruiting in that 30 to 50 to 60 range.
And remember, Jackson Lloyd's top 26.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Bama has 3 offensive linemen committed in the top 26. Is that correct?
This is overall in the country. This is not.
Yeah. We're not talking offensive lineman.
Tackle or interior. Yeah,
overall. Charles Power, who is the director of rankings for On3 Sports, said it earlier this year, and he said it over and over and over, that this is probably one of the, if not the best offensive line class that he has scouted in all the years that he's been working as a recruiting analyst. And when Alabama is able to get 3 of those guys that are in the top 26 overall, it's a really strong year.
Very strong. And by the way, we also hope you find our YouTube channel to be quite strong in its own right. And if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel for BamaOnline.com, great time to do that right now. Just hit that subscribe button right there. turn on the notifications via the bell that you're looking at, and you'll get all of our YouTube content for BamaOnline.com as it drops. Also, if you give us a thumbs up, how about a like for these two guys? We'd appreciate that as well. And guys, so
one more thing, Travis, we had a poster mention it too. Travis is not in his usual spot, and
I don't know what happened.
It has really thrown me for a loop.
Look, I'm left-handed, so
are you
think I'm comfortable over here?
Are you left-handed?
Yeah. Heck yeah. I don't understand. It's almost like blackjack or Texas Hold'em, how this, when I hit the buttons to add everybody to the screen, because I am the pseudo director and everything else.
Absolutely.
I have no idea how it's going to go. I don't know who's going to get the special center square. So Andrew, you might want to drive over to Georgia today and buy a lotto ticket. Or I guess up to Tennessee or something like that. Hey guys, just this overall offensive class too, wanted to ask you about, because you just talked about this offensive line group is just incredible when you think about it. Now you add Caleb Cunningham at the wide receiver position to go with Alatsier Brooks. And you think about tight end, where you made a recent addition that you're very happy with, and Keelan Russell at quarterback. Anthony Rogers has been a long time commitment at the running back position. I mean, it looks like you're just a piece or two away on the offensive side from being set. But Andrew, I guess those 1, 2, or 3 pieces, however many they may be, still some big names out there.
It's crazy to look at Alabama's class, and we talked about it earlier with 23 overall commitments, as of July the 15th. There's not a lot of room left in the overall class, probably looking a little bit more on defense, but offensive wise, I mean, this is about as good as a class as you can possibly get. Obviously running back still an area that Alabama's looking for. AK Deer certainly still out there and a top target for them. Wide receiver is going to be interesting. They do have their 2 guys that they really push for. Can they potentially get one more? I don't think adding a 3rd wide receiver is necessarily a must get for the Crimson Tide. I think they're pretty set on 2, but there's 2 guys that are still out there that they like, with Khalil Lockett and Derek Meadows. So kind of see how that unfolds with those guys. And then obviously the offensive line class, best offensive line class in the country.
What about it, Tim?
Let me jump in, Trash. The thing that's interesting here is, you tell, and I love you guys, subscribers, people that watch the show, recruiting fans, when they see me in public and they drill me with 3 questions I answered on the message board that they're a member of an hour early, it doesn't bother me. I love it. But everyone wants 4 wide receivers. Everyone wants 6 offensive linemen. Everybody wants another tight end. There comes a point where you're just getting to the best available. You got 4 inside backers. Ty Jackson's the best available. You get the wide receiver, like Andrew said, you have to decide, is Khalil Lockett one of the best? Khalil Lockett, one of the best available. You still got Malachi Goodman out there at offensive line, but also there's a balance, because you can set the balance off. You go back to Nick Saban, the year they had Justice Haynes and Richard Young. There was another top 100 type running back that ended up in an SEC school that was committing to Alabama. But Nick Saban said, we're taking 2 running backs, and they had Richard Young and they had Justice Haynes committed. So they had already told them that we're taking 2. Everyone, a lot of people say, take that 3rd one. Well, what if you lose Justice Haynes in the process? So there's a selling point to these kids that the coaching staff knows about that we don't. But also there's a great factor with recruiting. You get to number 1, you want number 1. You want to keep going. So it's going to take some patience to finish out this class, I think.
Andrew, Alabama Crimson Tide, as we talked about, currently sits with the top class for the 2025 cycle. How sustainable is that when you start thinking ahead to, as you talked about earlier, you got to get these guys signed in December, but so does everybody else. All these other classes have to stay intact. I always get a kick out of that argument. Got to get them to December. Well, yeah, just like everybody else has to get them to December. But in terms of sustainability, when you look at this class and perhaps staying in that one spot, maybe coming off of it, getting back to it as we go down the stretch, it kind of feels like a horse race, which is an awful cliche, but it could be somebody by the nose by the time this thing is put to bed.
And a lot will depend on the final rankings. I mean, like Tim mentioned, we still have an entire senior season. We have all-star games, for the final rankings to kind of work itself out. But Alabama is in that top group right now. They're number one. That could fluctuate over the course of the next few weeks, few days, few months. But being at number one right now, you look at all the other classes that Alabama's competing against, the guys that are still out there left on the recruiting board. Of course, you never know who might potentially decommit from one of these other schools. So a lot of factors kind of involved. But I think with Alabama, you have to like the fact that most of your commitments, if not all, have already taken the official visits throughout the entire process. They took all their visits in the month of June. So this fall, it's more about getting guys to, other schools trying to get your guys to come to their games for a marquee game, and that's going to happen. We're going to see guys that are committed, that are going to go to games. A lot of times it's just to enjoy it, but sometimes you just never know until the finish line, and you got to worry about those guys. But I think with Alabama, currently sitting with that top class, most of their guys are very solid commitments. They have taken official visits elsewhere in the month of June. Even guys who are committed to Alabama took official visits last month. So I think you got to like where they stand. I think as long as you're in that kind of top 3, top 4 range, you're going to have a chance really in this class, because Alabama, Oregon, Georgia. Who else am I thinking of?
Ohio State.
Ohio State. They're all kind of right there with each other, and I think they're going to be, the top 4, top 5, in that top 4, top 5 all the way until the finish line. And obviously, one other school, Texas, is another school that I think could potentially make a big move, and it's going to be a race.
Hey, Tim, Micah Phillips here in the show chat had a question for both of you, I guess. Do you guys see Alabama getting any of the big D linemen still available? There's a lot of talk about Justice Terry, obviously, and some other guys that are still out there.
I think Justice is going to be a hard pull. He's listening to Alabama. He's communicating with Alabama. I mean, that's the first steps. He's familiar with Alabama campus. I mean, obviously, Georgia's going to circle the wagon, knowing Kirby Smart. He loves defensive linemen. You remember when he was defensive coordinator at Alabama, it's going to be priority. But I mean, Alabama went in. There was 2 positions, wide receiver and defensive lineman, where they weren't trying to add quantity. They were definitely going for quality. We've seen that, like we mentioned earlier. If this is Alabama's wide receiver group, Brooks and Cunningham, they're thrilled. They're thrilled. They wanted 2 guys. I mean, now they have to decide whether to take a third one. On the defensive line, the number was about 3. Right now, they've got 3. Steve's moved to junior college, the Canadian from last year, Quebec City, Christmas capital of the world. And he's at junior college in Mississippi right now. He's going to be the Bandit, expected to come back in January. They've got London Simmons, who they love, committed, and they've got Antonio Coleman. He's kind of still flirting with other schools, but they'll keep recruiting guys. And again, we've mentioned this several times on the show. If there's a position where a guy can come from nowhere his senior year, it is definitely a defensive lineman, because those guys emerge. They move from the offensive line to the defensive line. They lose weight. They gain weight. They get stronger. They get more athletic. Defensive line recruiting will still be a focus, but they're only going to, at this stage, they're only going to take the guys they can't pass up. The numbers are just too tight. So there'll be a lot of quality there.
Andrew, I'm going to shift to you and ask you, we talk about who's next potentially every time we have a commitment or 2, as has been the case for Alabama over the weekend. If you've got a next guy up on your radar right now that might be a little warm in terms of commitment watch, who are those 1 or 2 guys that you're kind of looking at?
I think first it has to be AK Deer, number 2 player in Mississippi, number 2 running back overall in the entire country, decommitted from Ole Miss last month, and he's been kind of on commitment watch. It seems like for the last 3 or 4 weeks, but I think that Alabama has obviously been trending there since the decommitment. He posted on Twitter, I guess you call it X now, with an hourglass telling people to follow his Instagram page. And a lot of times that means a decision might be coming here pretty soon. So AK Deer is certainly the guy that we are watching relatively close moving forward this week. And then, defensive line, obviously Tim talked about Justice Terry a little bit. Still think Alabama is certainly heavily involved there, but they are going to have one target that's going to be announcing a decision this weekend, Floyd Boucard. I don't think it's leaning towards Alabama right now. We'll make a final pick on that. We're still kind of digging, but Floyd Boucard, originally from Canada, ends up taking an official visit to Alabama on June the 21st. But there's some other heavy hitters involved. USC, you got Miami, Oklahoma, all pushing hard there. So I think one of those schools ends up winning out on Floyd Boucard. But those are kind of the decisions that we're watching heading into this week. Derek Meadows also committing on Saturday, but looks more sort of like a LSU Notre Dame recruiting battle right there.
What about it, Tim? Who's on the Watts list? We'll call it the Watts list instead of the watch list. Who you got there?
That's what my principal called it. They, Meadows is one we're watching. I think that one sort of got away. I think Cunningham's the guy they wanted. It's interesting to watch some of these recruitments because Alabama, when it gets to the back and forth, I think with the NIL, I think they kind of just dip out. We've seen them, and the fans were mad early on, but I think they've got a set way of doing the NIL. And with Derek Meadows, he was set to commit to LSU on Saturday. Notre Dame did what they had to do NIL-wise to postpone it. Now, Saturday was interesting. There's like 7 wide receivers or something committed on Saturday. I don't know if they had a convention and decided to do it, but Caleb Cunningham was obviously the best one and one that benefited Alabama, but he slowed his process down. But when it gets to that point, and we saw this with Josiah Sharma. Josiah Sharma was, Bama, Texas NIL, Oregon, played big bank, takes little bank, and just came in there and took him at the end. But when it gets that back and forth, and I think a lot of schools would be smart to do that, because when it's just back and forth about the money, you can't predict it. But as far as the next, we're waiting on AK Deer. We waited patiently for Caleb Cunningham. Sometimes these guys postpone them and don't even make a decision. And some of them will commit right in the middle of a show we're doing. So, Haywood's kind of came out of the blue. We were prepped for Caleb Cunningham. So we're kind of keeping an eye on AK, and maybe he wanted his own moment. Saturday, again, was a busy, busy day for commitments.
You're telling me prestigious Notre Dame came with a bag late?
It's
wow.
It came in heavy. Hey, our LSU site, Notre Dame sites did.
Rudy's wondering where his bag was at this point. I got to think,
and we weren't even the ones saying it. It was
we were. We're just reporting it. Hey, look, and there's no judgment on the NIL. You want to go all in. This is not dirty recruiting. This is recruiting.
It is what it is.
Yeah, it's not sour grapes. It's this is the lay of the land now, and
it just is weird hearing that Notre Dame.
It is. No,
you know what I'm saying?
I think I'll tell you this. You're 100% right, because a few days before they went in, everyone said it was a Bama LSU offer. Notre Dame was an afterthought. Mm-hmm. So the NIL is like, stop. The NIL is like, wait a minute, let me think about this for another week. So, but you're right. I think they're going to have to get in there and make. Now, I will say they've been involved with Meadows for a long time, it seems like. And Alabama's in a position where they can pick and choose, what they want to do and focus on getting the guys. And everybody has a bank. I don't know about Oregon. That might be unlimited. They might have a money tree with Phil Knight. Yeah, Phil Knight's 80. Look, if I'm Phil Knight, I'm 84. I love a university like that. Can't take it with me. I might throw it around trying to get me one championship, one playoff, one thing. So completely understand it, but very interesting.
People forget that it was Oregon that lost to Ohio State in that first playoff after Ohio State beat Alabama in the Sugar Bowl in 2014, 2015. So Phil may be concentrating a little less on the uniforms themselves and maybe more so the folks in them. Yeah.
It's changed, but the NIL factoring in. But Travis, you make a good point. Yeah, Notre Dame getting in it, that means we're all in it. Everybody's in the pool.
Guys, it may be exercise in futility because of how things can change so quickly. And the transfer portal being what it is now. We talk about today's college football, but Rod checking in here in the comments asks, what is the total max number for this class? 25 plus. And again, Andrew, we know how difficult the math can be in today's college football.
For about 20 years, I've told subscribers, don't worry about the numbers. It'll all work itself out because there's never really a set number. Alabama and schools across the country can sign as many players as they want to, as long as you stay under that 85 or stay right at that 85 or under scholarship limit. So you've got to balance it out. You got to balance your high school recruiting. You got to balance out, how many players you feel like you're going to go after in the transfer portal once the season's over. You don't know who's potentially going to leave your program, whether they're going to enter the transfer portal, if they're going to enter the NFL draft early, unexpectedly. So there's a lot of factors that are involved, and you don't really know until the end of the season. So I think right now we're looking at probably anywhere between they got 23 commitments right now. You're probably going to 26, 27. But it just kind of depends on who can you get, who wants to jump on board, who can you not say no to, and you also got to wait and be patient and see what happens with your current class. Are any of those guys going to take you visits elsewhere? But I wouldn't say there's a set number right now as to who they're going to definitely take, who they're definitely not going to take.
You don't want to take a guy on the day of the portal that you don't 100% want on board, because that could take a portal spot from you. That could take and we never know what's going to be in the portal. We've heard it was going to be chaos. We've seen it be chaos. Alabama fans, I was talking to Andrew yesterday. We went through 3 portal cycles last year. 3 portal cycles. Probably closed in on 60. Kalen DeBoer's been here like 60 days. There's been like 60 days for Nick Saban too and Kalen DeBoer, a portal for Alabama fans. That's a lot in the last 6-7 months. So you never know who's going to be in there. I also think that we saw the April period, teams figure out how to keep their guys there, right? It wasn't nearly as much happening there as we thought there would be. I think teams kind of figured it out, and I think they'll now prepare to keep those guys for this next portal window. I think there'll be more diligence. I think you have, you got Courtney Morgan, a general manager. Other schools will have guys like that helping the NIL throughout the year.
And look at this. We have a contribution from Brandon Wilkins to the Tim
Jenkins.
Watts.
Thank you, Brandon.
To the Tim Watts Cargo Shorts Fund for $90. Hey, thanks, Brandon. We appreciate it. And
Thank you, Brandon, appreciate it.
We absolutely do. And
are they that much these days?
Well, I don't know. Where Tim gets them, you probably can get them for $4.99.
All I know is the $4.99 investment lasts about 8 to 10 years.
So, guys, we've actually, and we thank Brandon in all seriousness, and
thank you, Brandon,
for the contribution here to the show. But we've had a couple of questions in the show chat about the safety position. So, Andrew, we'll start with you there. Tim, maybe get your thoughts on it as well. What could that look like or not look like over the duration, the remainder of what the staff is trying to do in this class?
Yeah, I think you kind of look back to the transfer portal. Alabama was able to bring in a couple of safeties, guys that will have a chance to come back next season, not this upcoming season, but the following season. So safety is not necessarily a major priority. They went after some of their top guys. They got Derek Smith on board, his number 2 player in the state of Alabama. They recruited some others. Ivan Taylor, who was committed to Notre Dame for a while, flipped to Michigan. That's probably a guy that they may continue to talk with this fall. But I think as of right now and heading into the season, probably not a lot of guys that are priority targets at the safety board. I think they're probably going to wait, see who might emerge, who may decide to come back for a visit this season. And hey, if they only sign Derek Smith, I think they'd be okay with that.
Yeah, and the portal this last time around, they signed multiple guys, Tim, that have multiple years of eligibility. It's not like they went to the portal and got 3 or 4 guys that are one and dones either.
They've got some guys that could probably transfer to, guys listed at cornerback that can move into that safety role. So much versatility. I'd be hard pressed to think Derek Smith's a kid that couldn't play a little cornerback if he needed. So obviously can flip over to safety. Very happy with him. I think Red Morgan might have changed the game a good bit. You get a true freshman coming in and getting rant and raving like that. So a lot of options. I think the safety position is going to be a pretty popular one in the portal because you look for playing opportunity. A lot of guys spend time on special teams, looking to make that move. Guys rise up. We've seen a lot of guys rise up, from a safety position to go to bigger schools. So I don't think it's urgent by any means, but I think, like Andrew said, Derek Smith's a good one. It's one that you want to have. And also they don't seem particularly worried about the safety position. But again, here's the thing. This used to happen with Nick Saban. There's 4 guys we're not talking about that we'll be talking about in October and November, I'm guessing, because that's the way it was. Eddie Jackson We were not talking about Eddie Jackson Jr. coming off an injury. Not talking about Eddie June of his junior year. Safety was a concern that year, and they ended up going Jalen Ramsey, Von Bell, and Eddie Jackson. So they figured it out. They had 3 great options for that one spot, and I think this staff will do similar.
And Eddie was a guy similar to what you were talking about earlier, Tim. He was a corner initially that they converted to safety. So again, to your point earlier, you got to take that into consideration as well. Again,
Every defensive back thinks they're a corner. You know what I mean?
It's like every OL thinks they're a tackle.
They do.
Yeah.
It's every backer's an outside backer instead of inside. I mean, I've had discussions with coaches like safeties make a ton of money. They've changed, and its interior offensive linemen have changed in the NFL draft. They make a ton of money now. So I think the safety position is something they're going to evaluate through their senior. They got a whole senior year, all-star games. They got the early signing periods December 4th, I think. But they still have another one in February. There'll still be guys out there,
Micah matching Brandon now with the contribution.
Speaking, hey, this is an NIL battle.
Question. Big fan of the show. Micah says been following Bone for some time now. So Bone, this is $4.99. Maybe this can go towards like you can download some fish on iTunes or something. Maybe
rather have cargo shorts or fish CDs.
The new Fish album just came out this week. But,
there you go.
That's impossible.
Thank Micah for that. There you go. You're covered.
Appreciate
and again,
Micah.
We appreciate every one of you tuning in and following us on the show. And also, again, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel here for BamaOnLine.com, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on that notification bell. That way you get all of our content on YouTube as it drops right here. And of course, also, if you don't mind, hit us with a like, little thumbs up. There it is. Yeah, there we go. Thumbs up for a like for these guys. They would appreciate it. I would appreciate it too. Guys, a lot going on. And again, BamaOnLine.com is where you want to be for everything as it breaks. We're going to have you right there on the round table with us at BamaOnLine.com. And I know there's some increased excitement for maybe Andrew Bone's going to use this $4.99 for that NCAA game that's coming out. You fired. Now, see, Andrew, you're a little younger than I am. So you got hit with it, I guess, pretty good. The games like NCAA. I'm not saying I'm aged out entirely at this point, but it just sort of missed me. I think it's cool. But are you fired up about that, Andrew?
I think I'd be fired up about it if it was a few years ago. It's hard to play video games with 2 toddlers in your house, but
you got real life stuff. Yeah.
I mean, NCAA football was my game growing up. I mean, I absolutely loved it. Had it every single year. Love the game. I mean, it's exciting. I remember back, several years ago, getting a PlayStation 2 and playing random people online back in the day. I know that's kind of a common thing now, but it was new back then. Playing, first time playing online against somebody in an NCAA football game, and obviously people quitting most of the time because you were beating them so bad. But it's exciting to have it come out. I mean, you see all the different graphics and videos that people keep posting. It looks incredible.
Yeah.
My son turns 3 and in less than a month, so I've been trying to talk my wife into, hey, it's probably time for him to get a gaming system, even though it's definitely not. We'll see. Maybe next year we'll get one in the house. But yeah, I mean, it's a big day. NCAA football.
It's a big day here on the show. What about Chance Green with the $10? He says, "Don't leave me out, Trav."
Hey, he's not leaving Chance out at all.
Well, he mentioned me, so I guess I get that 10. Yeah. You know what? You need to just have this where it funnels Tim straight into NIL. That could be the contribution of the show.
This is the ABO.
I just gave Tim an idea. I don't know if he liked it or not, but I hit him with one.
Still getting over this. Andrew loves a game and thinks his 3-year-old needs one.
He needs it.
He doesn't need it. My kids are excited. Dude, I'm telling you, I think Techno Bowl ended video games for me.
I think
that was still, we would have 20 grown men play in those tournaments over the course of a weekend that were amazing. The kids are excited, especially my youngest son. I've
Yeah.
seen the social media is excited, really, really excited, too
Joseph,
excited.
Joseph is
I'll
very.
tell you who's really excited is still your girl guy. Because while all these cats are playing a video game, still your girl guy, he don't play video games. So we'll see how that goes. All right, guys. I think that's just about going to do it for the program today. Always great stuff from Tim Watts and Andrew Bone. Anything else, guys, before we get off here?
No, we're just waiting on that cookout coverage right now. Maybe a few more things coming up. That's 2 weeks away, 2 weekends away.
Yeah, July
12 days.
28th. We've already got a running
12
list
days.
on BOL of the guys that are coming in for that event. There'll be some more big names that get added to it. And hey, it's SEC Media Days this week, so I'm sure it'll be very, very quiet on the recruiting front.
But if it does happen, you know where you're going to get the coverage right there at BamaOnLine.com, the Roundtable, our premium message board. And again, keep it locked right here as well to our YouTube channel for BOL. For Tim Watts and Andrew Bone, Travis Reier, thanking you once again for joining us. Until next time, so long, everybody.